Social service and skill training provides offenders with community work, counseling, vocational training, instead of sending them to prison. Gambling offenses are often people that are non-violent and linked to addiction and personal problems. This makes them not a threat to society and is not really necessary to be locked out of it. Our motion today proposes a more constructive approach, reforming these offenders, giving them a solution to have a better life, and also reintegrating them back into society. Therefore, I have gained three main pillars. These three main pillars form the foundation of my argument and demonstrates the effectiveness and necessity of rehabilitation over punishment. First of all, gambling is not a violent crime. Putting them into prison does not solve the issue. Gambling offenses are usually linked to addiction or individual circumstances. Imprisonment isolates offenders from the outside world, not treating their underlying addiction. Putting them into prison does not help the problem go away. Them getting out of prison actually has a higher chance of them doing the same thing because they did not learn from their mistakes and they don't know the consequences of their problems. On the other hand, skill training and counseling provide a much more structured support to help them cope with their problems. It helps them realize what they did wrong and how they could change for the better. Additionally, looking at it using a different perspective, keeping non-violent gambling offenders inside prison cells and using up the resources that could be used for a much more higher risk criminals that should be isolated from the society is not very efficient. Cells and resources could actually be used better for people who are supposed to be locked out of society because they become a threat to society, not gambling offenders. Second of all, social service and skill training benefits both offenders and also society. Currently, the world faces a shortage of social workers who can support vulnerable groups and also rehabilitation programs. By involving these gambling offenders in social service and skill training, it does not only help them reform and have a better life in the future, but it also helps address this problem. Offenders can be placed in meaningful community work such as in shelters, educational programs, or also healthcare initiatives. This also helps them gain more experience and skills for the outside world. It gives them a second chance to live their life again and give them a stable employment after rehabilitation, reducing the risk of reoffending and fostering a long-term stability. Third of all, this approach actually fosters connection, empathy, and a person's well-being. Skill training and social work also helps offenders reconnect with the outside world. It helps them realize that gambling is not just their world. There's much more to do in this world, and there's much more that they could contribute to the social life. Punishments without rehabilitation also ignores the root causes and stigmatizes these offenders. People may argue that change is hard, that people can't change, but there are actually proof that people with addiction can change with the help of rehabilitation and also counseling. In fact, imprisonment can actually make the problem worse by reinforcing these criminals without addressing its root causes. Some also may argue that social service is too soft and that offenders might not take it as a serious punishment. But in reality, being soft does not mean that it's ineffective. It's actually much more effective than punishing them in prison. Programs can also include strict follow-up and also mandatory counseling, ensuring that these offenders can participate fully and benefit from this process. In conclusion, I firmly support that gambling offenders should receive social services and skill training rather than imprisonment. This approach actually addresses the root causes of their problems, and it recognizes addiction as a health issue, not merely a crime, and it also promotes empathy. Offenders can transform their lives from it, and society gains skilled contributions. Prison may punish, but rehabilitation actually transforms lives. For the sake of offenders, society, and justice itself, second chances through social service and skill training are not just preferable, but they are necessary. Thank you for listening and thank you for the time.